Pennsylvania and how the communities and the residents are benefiting from the natural gas development that's going on there. I believe you're a financial planner, is that correct? As a financial planner with People's National Bank, he sees these issues every day. So tonight he's going to share some of his insights with us and remind us what it is that we're hoping to achieve here in New York. So please give a warm welcome to Mr. Bill Lewis.
Thanks, Brad.
One moment, let me get this switched over for you.
While he's doing that, Dan, you said I had, what, about an hour and a half tonight on the program? Is that right?
There you go.
I can assure you I will be brief and leave some time for some questions. I think you learn as much from a dialogue or more than you do a monologue and listening to me talk. I've been asked to speak at a lot of these things over the years, and it's interesting because I do live in Pennsylvania. My office is in Pennsylvania. Probably 95% of my clients are in Pennsylvania. And it's always challenging to come and speak to a group of folks that are, in my estimation, kind of peering over the fence, if you will, and looking at what's going on in Pennsylvania. And rightfully so. I can be in a room of 200 people in an auditorium, and they're frustrated and should be. So, I'll try to answer any questions that you have. I'm not a demographer. I'm going to throw up some demographics here tonight, numbers that have been given to me from other sources, just to try to put some statistics to things. But most of it will be more personal stories because as a certified financial planner, I'm working with my clients every day and the impact that it's had on some of their lives. So I'll try to use some examples. I have clients that are business owners, owning closely held family businesses. Shed a little light on the impact to the business owner in this northeastern Pennsylvania and what we're seeing there. So without any further ado, economic impact I kind of broke down into state, county, and townships, landowners, business owners, and charitable organizations, because those are really the main entities, if you will, that are being affected by the revenues from natural gas activity. Let's talk about the state. I don't have a lot of great statewide numbers, but the local governments on a statewide basis in 2013 shared about 135 million of impact fees. 36, almost 37 million went to the local governments in northeastern Pennsylvania, where I'm from. And that's a significant number. Susquehanna County, which is right over your border, in 2012, $4.6 million in impact fees. In 2013, 5.4. They'll expect probably that much or more in 2014. That's a lot of money, folks. They can do a lot of good things with that money. What are they doing? Well, the county was smart. Thankfully, we have some forward-thinking, but fairly fiscally conservative county commissioners in Susquehanna County, and instead of getting crazy and adding jobs or positions and buying new equipment and that kind of thing, yeah, they're doing the obligatory, upgrading of some facilities that might need to be upgraded, but they really they did a 2 mil tax credit, and I think it was smart to do it that way instead of reducing taxes, and then all of a sudden, if the impact fees go away, they have to raise them again, and people kind of forget about your lowering. They only remember when you raise them. So it's a credit, and they plan to do another 2 mils in 2014. So, there are often times where someone will say, well, gee, I live on an acre of land, I'm never going to get royalties, but I have to deal with the traffic, I have to deal with the roads being beat up in some areas and that sort of thing. So I'm not in favor of this. And I say, well, there isn't anybody that isn't impacted in some positive way by natural gas revenue, and this is a great example. If you may only own an acre, but if your taxes are being reduced, that's not a bad thing. The other thing, they'll probably have one of the only fully funded pension plans in the state of Pennsylvania. They're very close to doing that, and I don't know if you read in the news about state or local defined benefit pension plans being underfunded. It's a very common thing. They've been plowing a couple $1 million a year for the last few years into their pension plan, and there's another obligation that the taxpayers won't have to worry about in the future. So they're really being good stewards with the money, as far as I can tell. And there are certain things they can do with it and certain things they can't, so they just can't spend it. And they do have to report back as to how they spent it. And they've also used it to upgrade some law enforcement equipment and departmental things. Bridgewater Township, which is a township I chose just as an example because it kind of surrounds the Montrose area. They got a little over $500,000 last year. You know, it's funny, I drive by the township offices or facilities, and you know, you see a lot of new equipment, and the folks that live in those townships are benefiting from some improved roads and little projects that maybe fix a bridge or something that they didn't have the money to do before. And you know, they're more efficient in what they do because they're able to go out and purchase some new equipment to do it. They're also looking at some reductions in the township taxes, and I mentioned upgrading of equipment. So how about landowners? You know, we've all seen royalty examples and all that, and I just threw one in here because this is a current a client that I was dealing with the other day. And you know, you say, oh, it's 300 acres, the numbers are going to look big. Well, of course they are, it's 300 acres, but you can, you know, take a third of that and now you have 100 acres. But it's not unusual to see something like this, and this gentleman who's a client of mine, you'll laugh when I say this, but you know, this is a 300 acre example. He has 600 acres, so this is about half of what he'll be receiving, and actually there's going to be 10 wells on the other 300 acres. But you know, 5 wells on that pad, about 5 million cubic feet a day, which is, you know, on the high end really. And he's receiving about $10,000 a day or about $300,000 a month in royalties. That's pretty impactful, you know. And even if it's, you know, I have a client that comes in and says, well, I'm getting $1,300 a month. As I jokingly say, you know, it pays the cable bill. And to someone who might be, you know, making $40,000 a year, $1,300 a month is a pretty nice increase. So, you know, everybody gets, you know, I did that on purpose, but everybody gets all starry-eyed about, gee, I'm getting, you know, you hear about people getting $40,000 a month and $25,000 a month, and you know what? I got a lot of clients receiving that, but it's still impactful if it's 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 a month. So, but they are real numbers. You know, they're not folklore. It's happening every day. But what are people doing with the money, I guess, is always, you know, the question. People think, oh, you know, everybody's buying a Mercedes and living large, and that's not the case. I mean, we're no different than you folks are in that we're conservative folks. A lot of my clients, well, if they were my clients, they already had a decent net worth, and so they're not changing their lifestyle and necessarily, you know, building a 10,000 square foot house and driving a fancier car, but they're able to do some things for family, help their kids, you know, do different things that they weren't able to do before. You know, paying off debt is a big one. Obviously, if they had a mortgage, they're taking care of that first. Improving those properties. Nothing makes me happier. I grew up working on a dairy farm, and nothing makes me happier than seeing, you know, a new milk house on a barn that was falling down, or a new roof, or a newer tractor. You know, I have to laugh. I talk about conservative. I was meeting with some folks that are dairy farmers and have been forever, about 500 or 600 acres of land, and you know, they received a lot of money. They signed very late in the process, received a lot of money on the front, and actually, ironically, neighbors to the example I just gave you. And I said, well, is there anything you need to do, anything you need to purchase out of this upfront money, which was a couple $1 million? And he said, well, yeah, I think I'd like to buy my wife a new car. And I said, oh, okay, well, how much is that going to cost? And he says, well, I know exactly what it's going to cost because I already have it picked out. And I said, okay. And he said, well, you know, her existing car is 2007 and it's got, you know, 100,000 miles on it. But I found a 2004 that only has 60,000 miles, and I'm going to get it next week. So I had to chuckle, and that's just, you know, the mentality. But, you know, upgrading equipment, obviously, dairy farmers, that sort of thing. I mentioned gifting to children and grandchildren. You know, what an awesome thing. You know, a lot of my clients, as I said, they're not going to change their lifestyles. They're in their 50s, 60s. They're not going to run out and blow a lot of money, but they can help their children or grandchildren with their college education or maybe their first home and those sorts of things. And that's very rewarding. And it's, as I always try to teach them, this money does not have to be a corrupting influence. If you do the estate planning properly and take care of these things, you can still have those kids and grandkids grow up with the same work ethic that you do and not have it be corrupting. Donations to charity, we'll talk about that towards the end, but that certainly is increased. I made the statement 3 or 4 years ago, there should be a charity in our area that wants for a whole lot in a number of years, and it's starting to really make an impact. How about business owners? I do have several clients that own closely held family businesses. Most of them are multi-generation. This is a second or third, and in some cases even fourth generation. We see when people talk about jobs, it's not just the companies coming from outside the area that might be hiring local folks for jobs. It's the local business people who have been there forever, but now can hire more people because they're extending their services. They're doing more things to accommodate the gas companies. The gas companies love working with local businesses to provide those services. And there's some entrepreneurial type folks out there who see those opportunities and say, I'm going to expand my business to do that. Whether it's, I had dump trucks and now I have some water trucks, or the gas companies need someone to come and plow the road up to the well pad. There's dozens and dozens and dozens of things that they need, and there's local businesses that have expanded their business. Whether it's selling seed and fertilizer, or I have a client that has a hardware store. He says they'll come in and want 33 tape measures. He says, I don't know what they do with them, but the guys lose them, and they need more. Or a pallet of duct tape. What do you do with a pallet of duct tape? He doesn't really care. He's happy to get it and sell it to them. The pipeline companies come in and want gates. He said they want 200 gates. There isn't that many in the warehouse, but they,
Can we switch mics? That one's getting a little bit of feedback.
But so anyway, it's great for those local business owners. And also, certainly the businesses are reaping the rewards of increased sales to local folks who now have more money to spend at their facilities. If I sell, ATVs, now there's more people that maybe can afford an ATV that couldn't before but wanted to, that sort of thing, or a new tractor to mow their yard. So those things are very, very important. One of my clients, I asked him to give me some numbers. I said, I know your business is really grown. Give me some numbers. He said, well, in 2012, we were up 22%. The very next year, up another 24%. He said, this year to date, this is a week ago, we're up 44%. Now that's pretty significant growth. And quite frankly, he doesn't want to see 44%. He'd be happy if it was only 20-something again, because it's hard to manage that growth. If you own a business, that's significant growth. And that growth comes with challenges, of course, but they're good challenges to have. I was in his office today, and it's just, he's in a whole different place. There's some, certainly, as I said, different issues with that, but he's doubled the number of employees, so that is, and it was not a small business to begin with, and now has about 80 million in annual sales.
What kind of business?
This happens to be a kind of an energy business, petroleum, servicing and delivering fuel oil and that sort of thing. So, and of course, the drilling companies need a lot of diesel fuel on the pads to run their generators. That's a very lucrative business and an expanding business as well. So even though he knows now that there's natural gas, because our area has not had natural gas like a lot of New York State does, but it's now starting to. But they're smart enough to have some vision to say, hey, we're probably going to have fewer people buying home heating oil because they're going to be hooking up to natural gas. We're diversifying into other areas. So. Charitable organizations. Obviously charities, we're all probably involved in a charity or two, and it's wonderful to finally have some folks that, they had the charitable intent. They might have been giving in the past, but now they can give even more, and that's an awesome thing in our area. Local business owners, but also the gas companies. I have to say, I've been very impressed with the amount that those companies step up and take a leadership position in giving. They know, they get it. They know they need to be good stewards of the community, and they definitely have been. I'm sure it's tough on them because everybody looks at them as the rich uncle and everybody hammers them for donations, but I have to say they do respond, and they have done a lot in the area. Cabot's one of the larger drilling companies down there, or companies with liquid leases. That's just a small representation of some of the things that they've done in the community. The hospital, of course, is a biggie. Healthcare is something that we all utilize. And we have a brand new hospital that's as nice as any out there. You could think you were in Syracuse when you're inside the thing. I mean, it's very, very nice. And they took a leadership position. Williams gave $1 million. You know, they've all been forward enough thinking to say, hey, we need to train folks to be doing the jobs that we're going to need done. So Lackawanna College has a campus in Gibson, New Milford area, and they have a natural gas program. So there's a lot of kids graduating from the local high schools that are going into those programs. And Cabot just made a $2.5 million donation for that, to build that infrastructure to continue to educate these young folks. And a gift to the Career and Technology Center, which also is training people that will be able to, you know, weld and do the things that need to be done. So that's really the end of the formal part of the presentation. As I said, I try to keep it brief. You know, you probably read about a lot of those things in the paper, but I try to use some specific examples.